Hello and welcome back! Today's video will be discussing Walt's love affair with trains and how it both inspired the parks and the world we live in today. So all aboard, let's go!
Growing up in Marceline, Walt was always exposed to the railroad, thanks to his father Elias and Uncle Mike who worked there, and because of the stop in town. In the 1900s, trains were the workhorse of the economy and a lifeline for supplies, food, livestock, and development. Walt always saw the trains as a means of escapism and as another way to a life filled with adventure and stories to last a lifetime. In 1916, Walt took a job as a news butcher, selling magazines and snacks on 3 separate rail lines: the Missouri Pacific, the Kansas City Southern, and the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad. He only lasted a few months and was once said this about his railroading career: "My railroad career was brief, exciting, and unprofitable." Though at the time seeming unprofitable, this experience would stick with Walt and eventually go on to inspire his own many railroads of various scales and styles. In 1928, Walt found himself back on the train, but this time back on the train home to California. Before chugging off, he sent his brother Roy a telegram saying, "Don't worry, everything okay." But things were rather bleak at this time. Walt had just lost Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, half his animation staff, and his film distributor, Universal. On the way home, he began dreaming up a new character, a mouse. Walt went to name him Mortimer, but his wife recommended Mickey, and it stuck. After he premiered in Steamboat Willie, Mickey traveled around in a cartoon called Choo Choo Mickey, where he drove a train while getting into some mischief. Disney would feature trains in many other classic films, such as The Brave Engineer in 1950, and Casey Jr. from the 1941 classic Dumbo. As the studio began to make the switch from cartoons to live-action films, they began to feature more and more trains. In the mid-1940s, Walt would fulfill a lifelong dream and purchase a large tabletop train setup that he would feature in his office. He loved showing it off to everybody who came in and playing with it every spare moment he had. In 1948, he would travel and attend the Chicago Railroading Fair. While there, he was invited to participate in the Wheels A Rolling pageant, where classic trains would parade by. Another hugely influential train that was there for the fair was the recreation of the funeral train for Walt's most admonished president, Abraham Lincoln. After returning home, Walt would construct his own 1/8 scale model railroad, complete with a half-mile track that would loop around his home. Named the Lily Bell after his wife Lillian, it was around this time Walt would begin to make notes and ideas for what he would eventually call the Mickey Mouse Park, a small family park that would include a railroad station and a large field for families to play and spend time in. But for Walt, trains would prove an even larger role at Disneyland and the future parks to come. Trains would prove not only as a means of transportation, but as a metaphorical vessel into the imagination and being transported to another time and place. The love affair of trains and the Walt Disney Company doesn't only lay claim to the man himself, but notably people like Ollie Johnston and Ward Kimball, who were fellow Imagineers, and at the time, they would stumble across Walt's tabletop setup in his office, and thus would begin the WED Imagination Engineers, or soon to be known Imagineers, to start on such projects. It would be Imagineers like Bob Gurr and Roger Broggie who would design the various creative locomotives used throughout the park to help get guests around. It would be Walt's legacy and love for trains that continues on today and is on display in nearly every Disney theme park found throughout the world. Whether boarding a steam locomotive in Frontierland or a futuristic monorail at Epcot, legendary Imagineer Bob Gurr would go on to design 2 separate trains, the Viewliner Train of Tomorrow and the Disneyland Monorail. The Viewliner premiered at Disneyland on June 10, 1957, and Walt himself was at the helm for this maiden voyage. Gurr based his designs on the GM scale models of the Aero train. But Gurr's bigger claim to fame is the Disneyland monorail, which opened on June 14, 1959, and is still in operation today. Bob Gurr designed both the Mark I and Mark II models. The Mark I model ran until 1961, and the Mark II model until 1969. It is through projects and examples like Bob Gurr that Walt's love for trains not only transformed and inspired the parks, but the very world we live in and function in today. To learn more about this topic, check out the article on waltdisney.org, where I learned a lot of my information, and check out the Defunct Land Mickey Mouse Park video as well. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and leave me some suggestions down below. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.